welcome to our Brothers in Conversation podcast powered by Jesse and Shondell. Shondell, you are from?
Bed-Stuy, do-or-die, Brooklyn. That little town.
That's a little town. That's nothing like Hawthorne, Nevada. Population 5,000 cats and dogs. Here we are, June 14th, 2019, episode number 7. This is going to be a half-hour podcast, not typical of our one-hour podcast. Welcome to our Conversations podcast powered by Jesse Farrell and
Shondell Newsome.
And special guest
Lisa Farrell.
Lisa Farrell, you are here to join the party. Our conference theme is Legendary Leadership, Past, Present, and Future, Part 2. We did this earlier, and we did this with Anthony Williams. Anthony Williams is an amazing executive.
Absolutely.
He's a corporate senior vice president of operations for MGM Resorts International, and outstanding character, does the work, works on himself, powerful leader, on and off the court, at work and at home. His day job is never done.
Yeah, and what I love about it is that he's with his boys.
Yes.
He's hanging with his boys.
And you know why he brought his boys to this? Why do you think he brought his boys to this? He didn't even know exactly what it was going to be. He knew he was going to be a guest. Why do you think he brought his boys to this?
Well, I think it goes along with the mentoring, the leadership.
Yes.
Right? It goes along with the theme of the 100.
It
right?
does. Well said.
What they see is what they'll be.
What they see is what they'll be.
Exposure.
Plus, exposure. Plus, Lisa, they see him every day.
Mm-hmm.
He needs them to see others that they don't see. That we're saying the same things as Anthony's probably saying, but they're going to hear differently from the two of us.
That's right.
And I did that all the time. Like my boys, when they hung out and went to different meetings and different occasions, you know, even if they came and fell asleep, I felt like they were there.
Exactly.
And they got something out of it.
Exactly. Well said. So we are recognizing real leadership in the areas of education, mentoring, economic empowerment, and health and wellness. And we're going to talk about that. Health and wellness is a vital component of a thriving community. That's right from the 100. Mm-hmm. I'm going to say that again. Health and wellness is a vital component of a thriving community. When you hear that, Lisa, what does that feel like to you, that statement?
Well, to me, health is wealth. So with your health and your wellness at 100%, you have the world at your fingertips.
Absolutely.
You do.
Yeah.
You do.
Yeah.
And if you have wealth in the terms of dollars where most people measure it, and you have no health, what do you have?
Nothing.
Zero.
Nothing. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you something. As a person who has participated in this organization, I wholeheartedly believe in this. And listen to this. The mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, and financial balancing. Most people are depressed because they don't have access or resources. So having financial balancing puts you, and we know this, right? It's like, and let's go back to when my father made that transition to financial balancing. Now you're no longer in a poor situation.
Trapped.
You're not trapped by your circumstances.
Yes.
Even if you have the acumen, even if you have the education, even if you have the wherewithal, if you don't have the funds to support that next level rise, you're stuck.
What did Dr. King say, right? He said, hey, what good is it for us to now have the opportunity to sit at a lunch counter if we can't afford the meal?
Ooh. Say that one more time. Say it again.
He said, what good is it for us to have the opportunity to sit at a lunch counter, but you can't afford the meal? So what basically he was saying, hey, we did all this work to sit down at a lunch counter, but now I can't even buy a hamburger.
We have to rise in other levels.
Yes, you got right.
And then those levels are mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, and financial balancing. Yeah. And it's like a juggling act because one of those balls get a little lower while you're managing 3 or 4 others. Yeah. At some point, you got to get back over to that ball and manage it because if that ball hits the ground, any one of those balls, if your spiritual ball hits the ground, it goes flat and everything else is up in the air, where's your life?
Nothing.
In the gutter. In the gutter.
If your physical balance is not maintained, and you become, no disrespect about people that have weight issues or challenges of health, but you become 444 pounds.
Yeah.
What's it like for you getting on a plane?
Right.
How many seats you got to buy?
Right.
How many?
And at the same time, you can tell, you can see that the consciousness of, and people standing around looking at you and you know.
And how do you even get through the airport at a size like that? No disrespect against that, but we're saying is whatever the conditions that get us out of focus, out of control, whether it's eating habits, whether it's bad habits all the way around, whether it's lack of education, whether it's lack of desire or motivation, whatever it is, we got to pull it together and keep ourselves in a tighter physical space, because if you have the money, if you have a great spiritual, if you got a great mental, but you're physically way over the line, you're going to suffer.
And it's all relative, right? Because here's what I tell people is, like, at the beginning of the year, I start off with all of this. This is really, who wrote this? I mean, who wrote this for me? Right? Because every year I start with this. I say, mentally, Shondell, you have to be sharp.
Right.
You have to be on your game. You have to be ready. Physically, I have to fight type 2 diabetes, which is diabetes is a generational thing for our family. So I had to fight it, right? So I had to develop new habits of walking,
there you go.
eating right, and how you do things. And emotionally, I have to. It's not that you're not going to have emotions, but you got to balance it.
Well, and quite frankly, in our culture, you're right, and this is many cultures. So it's not, we're not the only ones that owns this, but in our culture, we've been growing up with a lot of very, very tasty food. That's very, very naughty for us.
Yes.
And you get stuck in that, and you crave that, and you want that, and you don't feel satisfied unless you get that.
Right.
If you when you need to shift your habits to get yourself to a better physical shape, it's a very difficult thing, because you're battling all those cravings from our cultural upbringing, from those foods like, well, I'm not going to name the foods. You know what they are.
Yeah.
Those bring some challenges. Fried foods, fatty foods, a lot of sugar, super, super tasty stuff. So I totally agree with that. And we're going to take a bit of a quick photo here. I'm trying to sneak in here. There he goes. He's got a selfie. If you guys can't see it online, but he's doing it.
We're going to put it on there.
So we've been privileged to have the 100 Black Men of America, with their 33rd annual conference, invite us to deliver podcasts here live. You're going to hear some noise in the background because we're live in the lounge here, and there's people walking by and having conversation. But this is a live broadcast for us versus doing it in our studio like we typically do. So that's okay. We'll just bring our voices up, and we'll deal with it, because we've got little traffic patterns that are going to come on, and we're going to make that happen. But in the meanwhile, I want to talk about thinking about where we overlap and team up with the hundreds. And the hundreds, they're concerned about the well-being of the whole community and the whole person, physical, emotional / psychological, and spiritual. That's the same thing as our biobalance concept that we talked about in the earlier episode. Okay, their initiatives are aligned with those three objectives. So everything they do, their initiatives, is to support that. And I believe that's a life consequence, Lisa. When you think about becoming biobalanced, which part of the mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, and financial balance do you have the most challenge with or difficulty?
Oh, emotional.
And speak louder so they can hear you.
Let's see. Probably, from time to time, the financial, I would say, because I want a lot of things. I strive for a lot of things. I like to spoil my kids and my grandkids, and
it costs.
And it costs money. Sure. So the financial thing could always be a little stronger than it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about you, Shondell? What do you struggle with from that biobalancing concept of mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, and financial?
I want to tackle the financial only because this is where I think is real important for me. Is my father was one of my heroes, and he understood financials on a level that I didn't know he understood until he passed away. I had no idea that he was saving this brownstone that now is worth $3.6 million. I didn't know that he was leaving money for my mom, not only to bury him, but to live on past his life.
Wow.
And I didn't know that he was putting in fail safes. So when they bought a timeshare, that timeshare was paid off when he left this earth. And everything else, every debt that he had was paid off. I did not know. So what it does for me
He started that in the 50s and 60s.
70s and 80s.
70s and 80s. Still wasn't popular in the culture.
Still wasn't popular, right. And what it did for me is now that's what pushes me more than anything else, right?
Yeah.
Is that I'm thinking I have to do what my father did and better.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to Arlene, it comes to my grandkids, I have to build on top of what he started. And I can't go backwards.
Right. And so what you're saying is
car washing,
he gave you a whole new standard to start from rather than starting below the basement.
So when people say, my grandkids know this, they say, Papa, why do you always say that you're broke? I said, because I have not reached where I know I need to be yes, I have money in the bank.
Yes.
I have money to pay for this, but I also need money for you to go to college. I also need money from Nana if anything happens to Papa. I need to make sure everything. So when I say I'm broke, I'm saying I haven't reached the financial wherewithal that I want. I know I can buy stuff. I know I can eat. I'm not starving.
Right.
I'm not paycheck to paycheck. But I want to be to a level where I am impacting the future.
Why? Why do you want that? I like that answer, but why?
Well, because I think that the important thing when we talk about leadership is legacy. For me, it's legacy. I don't want my grandkids to go through what my dad and my grandfather went through. So we try to set it up for our grandkids so that they have a great foundation and a great platform to leap from. Because in our culture, when you talk about that, is everybody starts over.
Right.
Oh, somebody dies in the family, everybody's going to do a car wash, or they're scrounging up money, so they all start over again.
Right.
Right. So now I'm building something.
And we talked about starting all over again in the last episode.
Exactly.
That was one of Anthony's key points.
I need a foundation to leap from.
Right.
That's very important. Not a foundation to walk from or jump from, but to leap from.
Well, and I want the people listening to this and the 100s to hear this. I want to say something about this. I want to bring Lisa in on this as well. The target audience for the conference is comprised of the following: 100 member, average age 55 years old, males. Collegiate 100 is average age 20, males and females. And our middle and high school students, males and females. So those are the people who want to hear these sort of messages as well as the rest of the people. When we talk about financial intelligence and bringing up our financial acumen for Lisa and myself, the reason why we want that, number one, because it's a healthy perspective, but there's a much bigger reason, Shondell, and it's up there with where yours is at. We like to say that we are custodians of wealth. Now, we have to live into that. We haven't really, you say I am broke. We say we're custodians of wealth. What we really mean by that is we want to keep saying that because we want to aspire to get there.
Right.
Why do you may not know this, but why do you think that Lisa and I see ourselves as custodians of wealth, and we want to ultimately back that up by having the financial resources to really prove it?
No,
Why?
I love it.
Why do you think that?
I think because you want to, if you're being a custodian, then you're taking care of it.
There it is.
Right?
There it is.
So that's why I think that's
And what does taking care of it mean? Let me tell you what it is. You nailed it.
Yep.
Okay, these guys are really loud.
Oh, yeah.
They're really loud. They're really loud. They don't see us on the radio.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, to say that again, because we're in the lounge, we're custodians of wealth, and you said because that means you're taking care of it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to challenge you because you'll get it right. What we're taking care of is this. Our nature, our character, our personality is we're givers. We're both consummate givers. The reason why we believe that we're custodians of wealth is because there are a lot of people that get to be wealthy financial-wise, and they hoard it and they tighten it up and they want to make sure they don't lose their wealth, and they block and they don't. I'm not beating anybody, but that really happens.
And money's an energy.
So we believe that we're custodians of wealth because the powers to be that's going to make this happen knows that we will share that with people that need it.
I love it.
And when we do, Shondell, we don't want our name on it.
Right.
We want it anonymous. We
Like
don't
Prince.
want our name on it.
Prince gave tons of money away.
Right. So we believe that we're custodians of wealth because the powers that be knows that we will spread it and share it. We won't just hoard it. That's why.
Yeah, I love it.
So maybe reframing that you're broke.
Yeah.
Because you're really not broke, because that tells the universe something completely different. Because I think you become what you say you are.
Well, let me rephrase it. Let me tell you why I do that. Only because it depends on the audience I'm talking to.
Your kids
So
was
when
that
I'm talking
audience.
to the kids,
Okay.
I give them that because I want them to understand there's a different level of people being broke.
Okay.
Right? And so I try to get them, and I get it, but I try to hit them on a level of the language that they use.
Yes.
Right?
And
They say, hey, I'm broke. And I go, me too. So I try to get them to understand that broke is a state of mind, not necessarily the financial capacity that you have.
Okay.
And so I use that to
So the
bridge
people
them.
listening, so you do that to your kids. So the
Yeah.
kids listening to this,
Yeah.
that's part of the 100 black men.
I would say.
What would you say to
exactly.
them? Would you
I
say
would
the same thing?
I would say financially responsible.
I like that.
right? Because financially responsible is, and I tell my kids that too. I just gave that one example of my
But
grandson.
you're being playful with the kids,
Yes.
is what you're doing.
Yes, exactly.
But if you were saying that to the other kids, you would say it a little different, just in case they don't get it.
Yeah,
They wouldn't understand.
I would say be a good steward of God's money.
There you go. Which is that's why
That's
custodian of wealth, same
exactly.
thing.
So I get the concept, and really where it came from is that my grandson's mom says Papa has a lot of money, and Papa always has money. What I try to get them to understand is that when I say I'm broke, I'm saying you're broke because you want to do these certain things, right? I have the same mindset, but there's another level that I want you to see is people want to reach a whole different level of financial responsibility.
Right.
Yeah. So, because it's all relative, is what I try to tell them. It's all relative. Like, I like going to nice golf clubs.
Right.
I don't like carrying my bag.
Right.
Yeah.
I want to feel pampered sometimes.
And you want them to learn that too. So when we talk
Right.
about the balancing, we've been on financial for a while here, but
That's a good one, though.
Yeah,
it is
a good one.
But
It's important.
It's
Yeah.
no more important than mental, physical, spiritual, or emotional either. It's
Well, they all
just
tether.
they really do.
It's
That's
really
what
awesome.
Anthony mentioned too.
Yeah.
They sort of what he was talking, what Anthony was talking about in the earlier episode was when you get it right in one. He was talking about focusing on one, and it'll start to pay in others, in the other different. So, Lisa, when you think about this whole thing called biobalancing, what are you most proud of the things that you've overcome in terms of getting to and restoring and maintaining that balance?
Most proud of the things that I've overcome in maintaining
terms of
it.
the biobalancing concept?
Oh boy, where do I start?
Well, one place you could start is you never used to have a budget. And you lived from paycheck to paycheck, and you were asked the question of how long could you survive if all of your financial earning went away.
Yes, this is true. I never had a budget until I was 40 and worked with the life coach, and he said, you need to figure out how long you can live. You're a single mom with 3 kids, and so he said, save all your receipts and let's do this cash flow situation. And when he realized that I really couldn't live for 24 hours with 3 kids, he said, my chest is tightening up, and this isn't even my stuff. He said, you need to make some changes here. And literally the next year, I was in sales and making some decent money. I had saved $100,000 in a year's time by focusing on money.
Nice.
And your biggest
Yeah.
problem was you didn't know that you didn't know because you're such an aggressive, hardworking person. You always found a way
To rob
figure it
Peter,
out.
to pay Paul.
Or
Yeah.
to figure it out, but at what expense?
At my health. I
At
was
the
sick all
expense
the
of
time.
your health.
And
was sick
I'm
all
gonna
the
tell you
time.
something. What
That's
I
very
say
common.
is that is very common because if you can survive, you can really, really thrive.
Yes.
Exactly.
Right.
Especially
Yeah.
when you shift your attitude and your concept and gain a little bit more knowledge. Because what you gain
Yeah.
was what most people don't realize is we're typically
Yeah.
not taught how to manage
Right.
money.
Right.
Life skills in general.
Even with college
Yeah.
Right?
education.
Yeah,
and life-
absolutely.
So you were learning life skills at the age of 40 that it would have been best to learn at the age of 10.
Sure.
Right. And that we taught Alex.
Exactly.
We taught our son at age
Right.
10 all of the things I never learned, and look at him now.
Right.
Yeah,
Oh,
he's
that's
doing
amazing.
phenomenal.
Well, that's passing that legacy along. You learn the lessons from the other generation. You pass it along.
Well, he gets
And
out
then
of
you keep
college.
going.
I get out of college, and I'm happy to be making $27,000. Now I know that everything's relative in timing.
Sure.
He gets out of college, within a year, he's making $90,000.
Sure.
It's not because they're paying a lot more.
Right.
He had a lot more intelligence. To Lisa's
Yeah.
point, I had no intelligence
Sure.
with this stuff.
We championed his cause from an early. I got into
He did the
self-development.
work. He did the work.
I got
but he
into
was open to it.
self-development, and I put him through all of the
Everything.
Very good.
the teen classes, the
Stuff.
kid
The teen
classes.
version of what you
Stuff.
went through on the adult version.
So he's like, catapulted and light years ahead of me when I started at age 40.
So that's what we have
That's
to do.
what it's all
Those
about,
people
sure.
listening to this podcast that have children
Yeah.
that are coming up, whether they're young or mature,
Yep.
we've got to get them back to understanding the balance of life,
Yeah.
that
And-
biobalance concept.
And basically, you just did the same thing we're talking about. What they see is what they'll be.
Yes.
What they see is
That's
what
right.
they'll be.
If they see you, and this is what people have to understand. If they see you struggling paycheck to paycheck,
Yeah.
they are going to struggle paycheck to paycheck, and then you later on will be yelling at them, "What you doing, boy?
Right.
Why you can't get it together?
Right.
What's the problem?
Because we
I
never
don't
taught
want you
them.
to do what I did.
Yeah.
Right. But that's not teaching.
You're my
That's
role
not
model. You're my role model. What?
And
you're what I
interesting
know.
that Lisa
Right.
talks about that, because Lisa, you just made a shift too that I think the audience would be good to hear, those listeners would be good to hear. You're in a good situation financially with the business, Just Talk Speaking and Coaching Firm, with Lisa Listen as a subsidiary. But that wasn't good enough for you.
Right.
Even though it's better than you've ever had.
Right.
Please help Shondell and our audience, the listeners here. You woke up one day or somehow and you decided, I know the story, so tell them a brief version of that story.
I decided that since I retired from broadcasting 6 years ago, playing a great support role and doing all the things that I knew that I was playing too small, that it was time for me to come out and play big and bigger. And, been developing Women in Conversations, been developing groups for women to collaborate. And today I had one of those groups, actually. It was my first one, and it went very well.
But why did you do it? Why did you start it in the first place? Even though you're fine as a vice president of marketing in the company, that wasn't enough for you.
No, I know.
Why? That's the point.
I woke up one day and I was just vibrating, and there was something, and I couldn't put my finger on what it was. And I'm like, I walked into Jesse. I said, I got to do something. I know that I've got a calling to do something, and I went on a journey and a discovery to figure out just what that was.
She's also not saying this. She also said, the problem I have with the current circumstances is I don't believe I'm doing enough and using the tools and gifts and vessel that's been invested in me. I believe, while I want to be 100% supportive in the company, I believe that I can create earning directly from me and my efforts, not just from a supportive role.
Right.
So we're leaving a lot of cheese on the table. There goes your financial acumen going up.
Right.
We're leaving a lot of cheese on the table by me not figuring this out and creating additional revenue sources from my own direct activity.
Right.
Yes?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's very.
What do you
interesting.
think of hearing that?
I think it's commendable. I think it's great stuff because it's interesting because I just had lunch with a young lady that I mentored. She used to work for us, and she came to that discovery. She's about 36 now, 35, 36, and she said the same thing. She said, I feel like I'm doing my job as a wife. I'm doing my job as a mother. I'm doing my job as a provider, but I'm not fully fulfilled in everything and the purpose. And she asked me, why am I feeling? I said, you know what? I think most people feel that way, but most people are not courageous enough to say it out loud.
You say that, Shondell?
Or do anything about it.
You say that, Shondell, and I don't disagree with you. I don't think it's just. I think what you said is at the minority level, people are not courageous to say it out loud. They don't know the words. They feel everything you're saying, but it's like if they were. You just expressed that so brilliantly. They don't even know how to express that. They're feeling what you're saying, but they don't realize that's the nagging misalignment that's going on within them.
Because when you're in any type of dysfunction, and dysfunction is not a bad thing.
Said.
I think people don't understand.
I think we all go through it.
Yeah, everybody goes through dysfunction.
Absolutely.
Right? So when you go through a dysfunction and you're actually sitting in it, you have no idea that it's actually wrong, right, or indifferent. So that's what
it's all
saying.
You know.
You're not aware.
Correct.
It's all that
so
you know.
they have the feelings. It's. I've said this so many times before. It's what psychologists call cognitive dissonance.
Yeah.
When the role or roles that you're playing are out of alignment with your value or your value structure, you're out of alignment. You get that gut, that cognitive dissonance. It's something's wrong. And that's kind of. She's a great support person. She does an incredible job, phenomenal, and has helped advance the company 300, 400, 500% year over year. That's a heck of an investment in itself, but it's not from her direct activity.
See,
it's an indirect activity.
Sometimes people are measured by external sources when they should measure by their own values.
Exactly.
Yeah. Very well said.
Exactly. Well, so the people. So if you listen to this podcast, we've done a podcast on values.
Yes, we did.
So let's what are a couple of your core values that help you resonate well? Know that when you're in alignment.
One of my biggest core values is, I would say, responsibility.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
And accountability.
Okay.
Accountability is huge for me.
Okay.
It's, hey, if I'm a father, I am going to be the best darn father.
When you had a situation that made your life start all over again when you weren't looking for it,
Yeah.
the biggest thing that stepped up in you, and I know your story, was the accountability desire.
Yes.
You took on what most men run from.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially most black men.
Mm-hmm.
Don't mean to put us all in a bad place,
statistically
but a lot of
correct.
black men with the kid thing, and if it's a split in the relationship, they take off.
So to bring
You
context,
you came to those kids.
But to bring the context, what you said, this has been since the 1960s. A third of the U.S. households are fatherless. You get to the African American community, it's 80%.
Wow.
So that's not a
That's
a
huge.
guess.
By the
Yeah, that's a
statistic and the
huge
standard,
disparity.
most people would have run.
Yeah.
You didn't run away from your kids. You ran to your kids.
Yes. Yeah, when I ran to him and then just said, hey, again, talking to my dad was like, oh, we are going to make lemon out of lemonade.
Right.
Right? I understand. Now, and again, it goes back to access to things. It's like owning this 3-family brownstone now. Her mom, her sister, and my ex-wife all moved in. We were teenagers.
Right.
But Dad was like, we're going to be a family.
Right.
We're going to figure this out.
Pull it together.
And to this day, that is one of the reasons why we stay a close-knit family, because my kids realized that all they knew was, hey, grandpa, grandma, the whole family in one house.
Right, but those values kept bringing you back to the center.
Yep.
What about you, Lisa? What are one or two of a couple of your values that you live by?
Time, intuition, listener, great listening skills.
Yeah.
Hence, Lisa listen.
Talk to me about listener. Listening is it's most people don't have it as a natural talent. I think that is a natural talent of yours, but whether it's natural talent or if you've acquired it, most people have a difficult time listening because they're thinking about what they're going to say.
Right.
You're very good about that because your character is that you don't have to be the one talking all the time.
Right.
And you would prefer to listen
because I like to learn.
Because you like
and the more I listen, the more I learn.
Right. And you know what? The people that are the best listeners typically have the best things to say because they're taking in more than those of us that are only thinking about what we're going to say next.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, what's one thing that we could leave these listeners about this particular episode, which is, again, we're talking about legendary leadership. We didn't talk so much about the legendary leadership part because we did that in the first podcast on this, past, present, and future. But in terms of leadership, what would you say to those? You can speak to from a woman's perspective, woman to woman, or whatever, universal. What would you leave the folks listening to this podcast episode, about the power of leadership and why embrace that?
You go first, Shonda.
Okay, she's a processor. So, what would just to not a long one, just short, because we're coming to a close and we want to close it on time. But what would you leave our podcast listeners with? Why embrace the power of leadership?
Because it's just like this conference says, right? Legendary leadership, past, present, and future. Because you have to realize that there is a past, present, and future. And so when it comes to leadership, you have to structure it as such, because you know at some point the old school leaders or whatever are going to burn out or you have attrition. Then you have to have the present leaders who are in their space, but you have to develop future leaders.
Yeah, that's so true.
And your future leaders are going off of the past and the present.
Right.
So it all shapes up together.
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
Like
It's all
that.
connected and interconnected.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think the leadership part of life. A lot of times when people hear that, they think of the Colin Powells.
Mm-hmm.
They think of the presidents in stature like that and senior VPs of big corporations and so forth. But I believe leadership is an onus that is within all of us.
Right.
I think there's a thing called the leadership level, that how do you lead yourself? How do you lead your family? How do you lead your career? How do you lead in life? How do you lead when you're out in your occupation? I think we all have a responsibility to live in that leadership, and I think it's a constant correcting of how to keep raising your game in that area.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I really
said.
do.
Yeah.
So very, very good. Lisa, thanks for joining us for this podcast. We appreciate you being a special guest.
Thank you for having me, guys.
And Shondell, as always,
always a pleasure.
enjoyed connecting with you, and it was a wonderful display of dialogue.
Yeah.
Great communication. And Lisa, Shondell knows this. We're going to have you finish it for us as we close out our program. In order to live an extraordinary life,
Yes.
and to realize that relationships do matter, if you want to really get this right, you got to be focused on what?
It's all about how you leave them feeling.
Yes.
Well done.
Woo.